Welcome to our 2025 Cybersecurity AI Impact webinar. I'm Tom Ruffalo, your host. I'm a CISA at eSecurity Solutions. We will have two speakers today. Stephen Helm from WatchGuard will be presenting. He's a product marketing manager at WatchGuard. I also will present. I'm a CISA at eSecurity Solutions. I've been in the security industry for about 25 years. Two pieces to the agenda. I'm going to present on an overview of the market related to AI. I'll be talking about how AI attackers leverage AI to be more effective, more efficient. I also will talk about AI-powered solutions and how they're being deployed by vendors today. And also then we'll be talking about the products that are available in the market that leverage AI, so you can get a perspective on where we are in that evolution. And then also a quick discussion about the limitations. You do not have AI-based solutions, what kind of things you'll be missing out on. WatchGuard is going to talk about AI as a whole, but also will focus on AI attacks and threats as from their point of view, and also what they're doing to leverage AI to defend, protect, and respond to AI attacks. So I think it'd be a really good perspective. You get the holistic view, and you also get the WatchGuard perspective. There are two primary ways AI is being leveraged in cyber attacks. First one is to make attacks more efficient, which means they do more with less. So they'll be enabling more attacks at a lower cost, and AI is enabling that. Zero-day attacks are being enabled by AI. We've got cost-effective solutions now because of SDKs and so forth that are enabling more attacks on SMB. Therefore, enterprise, you don't have to be an enterprise, you don't have to be a high profile or a high value target to be attacked today. We all know. We saw that with ransomware, which was maybe 10 years ago, where there was the beginning of commoditized solutions attacking smaller businesses. AI also is enabling zero-day attacks. The other part of that is effectiveness. So we got efficiency and effectiveness that are both being leveraged, the results of using AI. By automating attacks, we get enhanced attacks. The quality goes up, it makes it more believable. We get personalized attacks that can be targeted to you because they understand more about you, which a lot of that can come from the web. And then also using AI to create deep fakes where their images, videos, and messages can be used to make CEO fraud or phishing attacks just that much more effective. Now, the types of attacks that AI enables include automated attacks. We talked a little bit about that already, and that AI can help to take those SDKs, the software development kits that are available in the market that criminals can leverage to detect weaknesses automatically, to help create more effective attacks, to help exploit those attacks, and also to create malware and ransomware. AI can be used to make social engineering attacks more effective by personalizing them, by creating more compelling content, and using deep fakes. Also, AI can be used for brute force attacks, in that AI can be used to make the deciphering or discovery of appropriate passwords and easier for those attackers and make it more quick. And also data theft can be enabled by AI, and that it really enables automated extraction, automated analysis. IoT attacks also, not everybody is as focused on IoT, but we see more and more IoT devices in the home and in companies, and AI can be used to create input attacks and automate the input attacks to determine where those vulnerabilities are and to automatically detect where they are. Now, AI-powered solutions do enable different types of things. So, number one, we often see AI used to determine what is normal and abnormal in terms of network traffic or events, or by looking at logs, by looking at just about anything that can be tracked. And if you have a very large data set, then you can determine what's normal and abnormal. And that is a method that's used for NDR, for a variety of types of solution, network traffic analysis, to determine normal versus abnormal. Once you know the normal baseline, then you can determine anomalies, right? And where those anomalies are things that are not normally seen in your traffic, and so that is a very effective method for looking at an abstract data, which is your network traffic, and determining what's normal and abnormal. AI also is being used in EDR, NDR, SIMs, SOCs, and management of all of that, and enabling that to be more effective in terms of monitoring, detection, and response. It's also being used in forensic tools to enable your operations teams to be more effective. So the results of that is you get faster attack prevention and detection, and it enables you to detect zero-day attacks. It provides faster blocking after you've done this fast detection to the number of false positives. Enables predictive analysis because you've got these very large data sets and you can see what the trends are. And also response automation, and that goes hand in hand with those enabling SIMs and SOCs and monitoring solutions to faster detect and then respond. And then also, and again, it enhances your operations team. The types of solutions that are leveraging AI security is a long list, right? It includes EDR, we've seen it, EDR, NDR, SIM, SOCs, email security, firewalls, source solutions. For most of the security vendors, you see them talking a lot about XDR, which is their ability to leverage all of their solutions as one integrated solutions by looking at the intelligence that's common between them and doing intelligent things to detect where threats are, right? So extended detection and response is something that is used by almost every vendor, and they're all leveraging AI to try to make that better. And they're all working on that as an evolutionary set of solutions. AI-driven operations security tools, we talked about a little bit of that already, and that is an important method to make your operations teams more effective by giving them better tools, looking at large data sets, being able to quickly determine where the threats are, and also potentially looking for solutions and how to mitigate them. And then also something we don't think about, but phishing solutions and automated training can also use AI to provide more efficient phishing tools and computer-assisted training. So the limitations of non-AI solutions. So if you don't focus on selecting the right vendors with the right solutions, and you're not thinking about AI as an enabler of better solutions, you might potentially be limiting your ability to detect zero-day attacks because you're focused more on static solutions than AI-driven solutions. Also, the same thing could be said about delaying the ability to detect the attacks. You may be instead waiting for updates rather than having a dynamic environment driven by AI. You may be using manual monitoring, not using very large data sets, which enables your ability to respond much more quickly. You might be using error-prone methods that are more human-driven than AI-driven. And your solutions may not be dynamic, right? If they can't react to changes, quick changes, then you may be, it's like the old days where we're waiting for signature updates in your AV. So just an overall summary of all this is AI security enables better security leveraging AI and large data models. There's the large data models and the ability for AI to work on that and determine normal, abnormal, to look for trends, all those things is one of the big benefits of AI. The second one is to make it more effective and efficient and enabling your security operations team to be more effective and efficient. So these are two major outcomes of AI security. Just an quick overview of eSecurity solutions. We work with many of you already. We're focused on small to mid-sized companies primarily. We actually provide 3 essential services for companies, solutions, GRC services that leverage risk assessments, risk management, compliance solutions, security products such as the ones offered by WatchGuard, and the ability to resell those, and then MDR-driven managed security. So managed security in firewalls, endpoint, EDR, MDR, all MFA, all those things are things that we cover. And our goal is to help companies that are focused on compliance, if you're at the top of that triangle, or if you're just focused on strong security, we can help you with those goals. And then basic security if you're really more meat and potatoes focused. But the bottom line is what we want to do is get in line with what your goals and objectives are and help you solve those problems. With that, I'd like to transfer the presentation over to WatchGuard and Stephen.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Tom. I love the way you set up this whole conversation, right? Because there's a mirror between the adversary and sort of the security practitioner, and that's efficiency and effectiveness when it comes to using AI. That's ultimately why AI is relevant, why we're talking about it today. So very excited to be here and spend a little bit of time with you guys. Thanks to the eSecurity team for inviting me. My name is Stephen Helm. I'm a product marketing manager here at WatchGuard Technologies. Spent about 15 years in the cybersecurity industry. Started off really focused on cryptography security, PKI, looking at the infrastructure that underpins secure manufacturing, IoT, financial services, those types of areas. But have spent most of my career with WatchGuard and have had the distinct pleasure to really watch us evolve from really one of the original firewall vendors to really now a platform first organization. And artificial intelligence is a key part of where we've invested in the last 2 to 4 years. I'm really excited to share some of those investments and how we really view artificial intelligence in our portfolio and the value it can bring to our clients. And so really just to sort of get us a little bit on the same page here, I'm sure at this point you've all heard a number of different explanations around artificial intelligence. I think Tom did a great job talking about sort of the adversary's use as well as the practitioner's use of artificial intelligence, where there's real value being gleaned from AI today. And the reality is artificial intelligence, the term is a little bit controversial, right? Folks like myself, I'm a marketing person, you know, at times we maybe have jumped the gun the use of artificial intelligence. If you roll back the clock, let's say to 2017, where you were seeing a lot more of your machine learning types of solutions come into the cybersecurity space, the desire was to originally jump in and talk about it as artificial intelligence, to really use that term to try and gain an easy understanding in the audience. And that sort of has created a little bit of confusion, in my opinion, in the market when it comes to what is artificial intelligence, what is not artificial intelligence. And the reality is we've had a pretty strong definition of artificial intelligence going back to the 50s, right? It's supposed to be a system that you can't distinguish between a normal human intelligence when you're having those interactions. But the reality is we've sort of fudged how we understand this terminology and fit it to our purposes where needed. Now, I would say one of the big inflection points when it comes to artificial intelligence, and I'll talk about this more in a few slides, is ChatGPT and this idea of generative AI. I think we're much more comfortable talking about artificial intelligence today because of the emergence of generative AI. It's in people's hands. They can play with it. They can experience it to a degree they've never been able to before. And in that sense, it's kind of made it a bit more of a reality for the market at large, right? And so we've seen that in the artificial intelligence market today. Just about any business that's got a growth mindset needs to have a bit of a story of how they're using artificial intelligence. That doesn't just mean cybersecurity, but how they're using it for their internal operations, how they might be using it to go to market, where they might be building solutions or capabilities to go to market that include artificial intelligence, right? This is a big part of how businesses are talking to their leadership and strategizing their growth, really going into the future. And that's something that we see reflected in market research. And then where they're actually using artificial intelligence today, the top thing is customer service, but the close number 2 here is cybersecurity and fraud management. And I think all the details Tom provided to start out the presentation around efficiency, effectiveness, that's exactly why AI has penetrated into cybersecurity so quickly. It's a very, very confusing space. It's dynamic. It moves fast. And if you miss something, right, the consequences can be devastating. So it makes sense that this would be an area where there's a lot more investment and prioritization around artificial intelligence technologies, to start within some of these organizations. So let's take a step back and talk a little bit about ChatGPT in this generative AI, hype cycle. Gartner puts out their hype cycle every year, and really recognize that we're really reaching that peak of inflated expectations when it comes to generative AI. When ChatGPT first came out, they had something like 5 million users within the first week of making it publicly available, right? Today, they have over 200 million users who are actively using the platform today, right? And you can probably see this on all your social media channels today, right? People's messages seem to be a little bit longer, seem to be a little bit more punchy, right? We're seeing people use things like ChatGPT to generate images and use them to add to blogs and social content, right? They're really starting to experiment and find ways to use AI and specifically ChatGPT-like programs for their own work or own personalized and starting to become much more familiar with these types of tools. And that's also leading us a little bit into this trough of disillusionment where people are saying, well, I can see some of the shortcomings, I can see some of the challenges, but I think we've really gone over the peak in the sense that people see AI as being here now in a very real way. They're starting to understand that it's going to be here for the rest of their careers and their lives, and are really starting to contend with how they can use it to be more effective. And so when we talk about cybersecurity, specifically in Gen AI, there's some very low-hanging fruit here, and there's a great blog post that SC Magazine put out. But things like email security, right? We talked about some of the ability to create phishing emails that could bypass your phishing protections or make it more difficult for your users to see and identify. Same thing is true with AI. We can use similar techniques to identify misconfigurations or abnormalities within those emails that could suggest they are phishing emails and surface that to the audience. Identity security, right? Easier to create deep fakes and fake personalities. One of my previous roles, we were chasing down North Koreans who were using fake profiles to actually infiltrate into IT teams. Well, again, AI can be used to help, again, strip back some of those identifying elements and unmask the folks who are actually behind these attacks. So you're not introducing these, fake accounts into your environment. Cybersecurity reporting. I'll talk about this in more detail later in the presentation, but there's a real ability to automate and get sort of an overview of your cybersecurity posture and compliance with AI to a degree that really is quite difficult using other tools. And then really at the highest peak, the potential for getting to a point where we have enhanced security analysts, a resource that you can actually communicate with and can make sense of your security environment in a way that, would normally require a very technical resource for you to be able to get to. So there's some real things happening with Gen AI, specifically in cybersecurity. And it's really sort of leading us to this path, in my opinion. If you're a big Mad Magazine fan, you'll recognize this image, where instead of spy versus spy, we're really entering a point where businesses are playing a game of artificial intelligence versus artificial intelligence. Your adversaries are going to use these tools. They are using these tools for all the ways that Tom mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. And so you really need to be considering how you're using those tools or using artificial intelligence within your own environment to really counter their capabilities there. And so if we look at this and sort of break it down on the AI good versus AI bad, this is some of the ways I sort of like to look at it, right? Hackers are absolutely gaining new tools, right? They can automate their attacks, their phishing, social engineering. We talked about deep fakes, password cracking, all the stuff we talked about to start the presentation. But then on the good side, right, it really does turbocharge your anomaly detection, right? You can anticipate, discover, and block threats more effectively. You can find malicious code, eliminate unknown files and processes, correlate across security layers, and automate to stop attacks in progress. This is a very big one, right? I think organizations are going to start to have to become more comfortable with the idea of using intelligent automation to actually kill attacks in progress. So you're not having to pick up the phone and say, oh, we feel like we've got something, and spin up your playbook and somebody manually having to go in there. It's about using artificial intelligence, building policies around it that allow that AI to actually interject on your behalf and stop a threat before it really gets out of control within your environment. And I'll give you an example of why that's so important a little bit later in the presentation. here. Advance sorry, my slide isn't advancing. There you go. But just to sort of put us all on the same page here a little bit, WatchGuard take is that there's absolutely more opportunity for artificial intelligence to help here than there is to harm, right? I think it's important for us to just make that statement off the cuff here. You know, we are prioritizing our investment in AI for exactly that purpose. We think it's an essential capability for every security team to have today. I apologize, my slides are not quite advancing here. There we go. And just to put a finer point on, AI is really a must-have for effective detection and response going forward. So, you know, I'll talk a little bit about that in more detail to close out the presentation, why we think that's the case, how we're using it today, and what that looks like within the WatchGuard portfolio. This is an example of a biochem company called Enzo, right? That suffered a pretty complex attack in April of 2023, right? Not a huge company. They only have about 236 employees, been in business since about 1976, right? $31 million in revenue, but they manage diagnostic tests and the data for over 2 million patients, right? And so when you look at the sort of chain of attack that they suffered, I think you can start to see really, how complex this type of attack would be for somebody to normally execute, right? They started with compromised credentials that had been shared across multiple employees. They installed malicious software and really began to expand within the environment. And you can see when from the access phase, this really only takes a few minutes. But once they get to that expansion phase, they tend to take around 5 days within your environment, right? Sussing out the environment, getting a lay of the land, starting to move laterally. And that's what they did here. They moved laterally, compromised different servers until they got to the patient records that they really wanted. They downloaded about 2.5 million records, including the most sensitive details around those individuals. And then they also started locking down this data using a ransomware attack, right? So this was an exfiltration as well as a ransom attack. And so although this organization had backups, it caused you know, their issues with the backups caused a lot of delays. It took them about 3 months to get back up in standing. It cost them about $4 million just to get back up from their backups that they had established, right? They didn't pay the ransomware that we could find anywhere. This is not published that they paid it. But they did agree to pay the state of New York about $4.5 million in fine. And there's still a HIPAA investigation and a lawsuit going on. So this is long from over for Enzo, right? This is something they're still contending with. Excuse me, I'll take a glass of water here. And ultimately, they had inadequate monitoring, specifically when it talks about that expansion phase, those various moments where they're moving laterally, their new network recon, they're establishing command and control. Those are opportunities, if you have the right ability to monitor and look for anomalies within your environment, to actually detect those things. And if you go back to Corey's statement about those multimodal AI, and you see this attack chain I have in front of you, just think about this as an automated process. Okay, I have the credentials that I've stolen. Well, now I can just have an AI system that's going to go out and find the internet exposed service for me, that's going to perform the reconnaissance, that's going to do the heavy lifting for establishing command and control, right? That'll stage my data, will start help me escalate my privileges, right? And then also facilitate exfiltration and mass data encryption. You don't need to have all these diverse skill sets that you used to have as a threat actor, right? To actually get this type of attack executed, right? And again, lowering the barrier to entry for your threat actors who are wanting to attack you in this way. Okay, so now let's take a step back a little bit and talk about how WatchGuard really views using artificial intelligence today. I'll talk about 3 areas where we're using artificial intelligence today, and this is by no means comprehensive because, again, artificial intelligence is a big part of our strategy going forward and how we're building our products, not just from a security efficacy standpoint, but from an operations standpoint as well. So 3 areas I'm going to talk about. XDR, so extended detection and response. And for our purposes here, I tend to put network detection and response under this as an umbrella as well. So you'll see that in the next couple of slides. but we're providing real-time incident scoring and automated response, averaging only 3 alerts a day, right? So really trying to distill it down to as minimal amounts of alerts. Not just security efficacy, but also reporting, right? I talked about how you can provide sort of that overwatch for the entire organization, right? And use that to actually generate reports here as well. And then EDR, endpoint detection and response. I'll give a bit of an example of a unique way that we're using AI within our portfolio of the endpoint detection and response solutions. That's really unique compared to other players in this space, and is providing us a lot of efficacy that we've seen out in some of the more recent head-to-head sort of contests of these solutions. So if you're familiar with WatchGuard and you've worked with us in the past, you probably have heard the term threat sync, right? We introduced threat sync, I believe it was in 2017, and really at a high level was the first solution that allowed us to correlate endpoint telemetry with what we were seeing on our network security solutions. And this was really in response to ransomware, the rise of ransomware. We recognized that, hey, the endpoint saw a tremendous amount of information, but so did the network. And if you could combine these two, you get a much clearer picture of what a ransomware threat could be. Simple things like the payload arriving on an endpoint and then establishing a command and control channel and trying to do that through your firewall as an example. You could correlate those points together to give you a very strong confidence that there was an ongoing attack. And so we've really built that out from a native perspective. So now we include Wi-Fi, we include our full endpoint portfolio, as well as things like our multi-factor authentication solution today, as really our threat sync, what we call threat sync core today, that's included with WatchGuard Cloud. But really the exciting thing that we've done in the last year is the introduction of ThreatSync Plus. And this is really our sexy artificial intelligence engine. We initially brought it over from an organization called Cyglass. There was a multi-layered engine they had built with DARPA. This is an engine that monitors for anomalous behavior and automatically covers early signs of misconfiguration, vulnerabilities, breaches, right? It's 24/7, 365 monitoring, as Tom described off the start of the presentation, right? It operates outside of the network for full visibility of the threat surface, right? So it's an independent sort of cloud service sitting up and providing overwatch over your threat surface, and then provides those intelligence detection and response capabilities, right? So I'll talk about really what that process looks like in a little bit more detail. But at a high level, this is really where we've invested a tremendous amount of effort in our artificial intelligence strategy around ThreatSync Plus. Now, you'll see that we offer ThreatSync Plus in really 3 different ways today. We have ThreatSync Plus NDR, Network Detection and Response. So again, a cloud-native AI detection and response for your network. So requires no hardware, defends on-premises networks, VPNs, and identity threat surfaces, right? So really, your whole network, on-premises network, provides that an overlay of artificial intelligence and detection and response. We've also just introduced our ThreatSync Plus SaaS. And this is really for SaaS applications and cloud platforms, as well as cloud identity threat surfaces. So with the 2 of these solutions, you really have north-south and east-west traffic coverage with a very powerful artificial intelligence engine. Again, I'll talk a little bit about more of the specifics of what we're looking at there in the next couple of slides. And then the final thing we have here available is WatchGuard compliance reporting. Again, I'll talk about this in more detail, but again, same idea of overlaying your threat surface, but instead of actually doing detection and response, it's more looking for cyber hygiene, looking for gaps, misconfigurations, and being able to automate and provide very clean insights into some of those gaps and some of those areas you can improve, right, in a way that is, I think, been very successful for some of the clients who deployed it, and is starting to become something that they really rely on in strategizing and improving their own internal security, as well as alleviating the burden of compliance in some very meaningful ways. And I'll talk about that in a couple of slides here. So, I talked about XDR with ThreatSync, and I mentioned that being sort of a native idea, right? All of those ThreatSync core solutions, our WatchGuard native solutions working together. But with ThreatSync Plus, we're really taking a direction of open XDR as well. It's not just the introduction of a very, very powerful artificial intelligence engine. It's also all the things that we can plug into that engine to provide you value going forward, right? So obviously all the WatchGuard solutions will be going in there, but also we'll be increasing and expanding to include things like third-party firewalls, third-party endpoint solutions in the future, right? More cloud services, more cloud areas, additional network routers and switches, these types of things that we can plug into this, centralized artificial intelligence engine and start to use to push out smart alerts, identify policy violations, right? Perform investigations, perform remediation, right? We have a very consistent workflow for ThreatSync on how you actually can get in and remediate attacks that you identify, build automation and playbooks around those. I mentioned the reports, right? On things like compliance, threats, risk, our goals and objectives. Lots of customization here, right? So you can tailor these reports and run them, on a consistent basis to track your progress, right? That's what's possible now with this artificial intelligence engine behind ThreatSync Plus and what we brought over with the Cyglass acquisition early last year. And so if we look at this in more detail, right? You can see on the left-hand side, we have the ability to ingest and take log data from all of these different things today, right? Our fireboxes, VPNs, office firewalls, Enter ID, SaaS applications, cloud platforms, right? We're bringing in more endpoint solutions this year, specifically starting with the WatchGuard solutions. But then also expanding into things, outside of the WatchGuard stack. We do offer the, Microsoft 365 today as part of our SaaS solution, which is a very common use case here. But we'll continue to expand that. And so basically the process here is that as this data is brought in, it's enriched, right? There's this process of collection and enrichment. It goes through these algorithms to actually learn and identify things like assets, the different features of things that are coming through these environments. We have different machine learning events, right, that'll help us look at threat-specific events and identify them, anomalous machine learning events. So if this is just off the baseline, as Tom mentioned, to begin the presentation, identifying those things. And then we have this process of behavior and event correlation, right? Starting to distill these things into behaviors and specific correlated behaviors that are relevant to your environment. And then ultimately what we're going to do is deliver smart alerts to you. And our goal, typically what we're doing is averaging around 3 alerts per day for an organization. You can see this is an actual example of a client environment where they have around 2.73 billion flows across their different network environments, right? We're able to, through this process, reduce that down to 5.2 million events, which are then correlated to around 9,000 behaviors, and then reduced to around 21 alerts, and this is over the course of a week, right? And so that's roughly 3 alerts per day. Now this really matters, right? Because you only have so many cycles in your day to deal with an alerts, right? So if you're using something that's generating 100 alerts a day, that's not really effective for you. You don't even necessarily know where to start. So we really want to make sure that all of these alerts are really correlated into a narrative. So it's very clear for, the severity, but also really where and why you should respond to this threat, and making it very, very clear for your team to be able to do so with confidence. And so, if we look at the ThreatSync Plus use cases, right, I think the first 2 are pretty obvious. I think a dramatic improvement in risk visibility. Where are your security gaps? Where are your hygiene improvements? Where do you need to make improvements there? Misconfigurations, things like zero trust. This is great for helping you identify gaps potentially in your zero trust planning. Threat detection, the actual ongoing attacks, that 5-day dwell time I mentioned in the earlier example, right? Really about reducing dwell time, stopping the damage, right? Things like ransomware attacks, right? And being able to map these to a common framework. We're using the MITRE ATT&CK framework to make it very clear where these things are occurring in the stage of these attacks. But I think 3 of the other use cases that are extremely relevant here for this audience is obviously compliance, right? Compliance is a growing burden for organizations, right? Even if you're a little bit smaller organization, chances are you're starting to feel compliance pressure for one reason or another, right? Maybe there's a new mandate that's coming into play. Maybe it's something that's been mandated internally, or it's part of an industry mandate that you're subject to. Things like supply chain defense is another area where we've seen a lot of need for a solution like this, right? We have an example of a small agricultural organization in Ireland, right? Really, their IT team was two guys who are predominantly farmers, but they happen to have a little bit more computer skills than their fellow coworkers. And so they had been in business for several decades, and they just recently had one of their biggest customers, right, one of their supply chain partners, come to them and say, look, you need to prove to us all of your cybersecurity efficacy, right, before we'll agree to continue doing business with you. This wasn't because they suffered a breach. This was because the actual partner, or the I guess it was a grocer, was just trying to protect themselves and avoid, becoming a headline themselves. So they needed all of their suppliers to adhere to a specific, level of security and be able to prove that. And so, we were able to go to these two gentlemen who are part of this agricultural group and provide them an easy way to automate a lot of the insights into that compliance requirement that they were getting from their supply chain partner. And rather than this being a huge headache, which could have potentially put them out of business if they weren't able to satisfy, they were able to build some custom reports and get their partner what they needed. And very similarly on cyber insurance, right? The burden for cyber insurance has increased pretty dramatically. It used to be, hey, just fill out a survey of what you're doing for cybersecurity, and we'll sort of check that as being good enough. There's a lot more requirements being placed on organizations that they want insurance, and so the ability to provide a real honest assessment, using artificial intelligence of your adherence to the requirements of the insurance provider is very effective and helps ensure that you can get that insurance. And so one of the final things I talk about here, and I talked about the compliance, is what this looks like in a threat report. So with our threat reports, you can automate this process and provide continuous compliance, whether that's with insurance, whether that's with a supply chain provider, right? Provides in-depth visibility into things like NIST and ISO frameworks. We have a number of different frameworks built into the solution already that make it easy for you to come in and either build your own report or use one of our standardized templates. Easy configuration, continuous report creation. We can automate this process. And as you see, each one of these is provided with a threat score, right? Whether you're successful in preventing that type of threat, where you have some more work to do, and then describes it with some very clear guidance on actually how you can actually go ahead and improve your security posture to score better going forward. These are, I think, extremely powerful reports and been very useful. And artificial intelligence and what we've done with ThreatSync Plus really is what makes this possible and effective. So that's really where we're at from a WatchGuard ThreatSync Plus, our XDR story, and some of the compliance reporting standpoint. I just wanted to sort of finish with one of the other areas where WatchGuard has used actually artificial intelligence for a little while now that I think sometimes gets a little bit lost on folks in the market, right? And that's when it comes to our WatchGuard endpoint security products, right? We have a portfolio of products today that really serve various needs for endpoint security. Our endpoints, next generation antivirus, our EPP, essentially, your traditional antivirus capability. But we also have our EDR solutions and what we call our EPDR solution. And I've specifically called out what we call our Zero Trust Application and Threat Hunting Service. And I want to talk a little bit about how we use artificial intelligence on that solution here. And so really our approach is very unique. We take all of your deny, your allow listing, your standard policies you had built around your various applications, your goodware, your known malware, right? And we put them through a process of AI-powered threat detection, right? We automatically classify all of these things to the degree possible, right? And that what we find is that we're able to automatically sort of classify 99.98% of all applications that hit a user's endpoint, right? And then what we actually do is take that last mile, that last 0.02% of applications, and WatchGuard's human analysts actually go through the process of pulling these things apart and understanding whether or not they're goodware or they're malware, and whether they should be blocked and removed or allowed to be executed. And really, the way we talk about this is this happens in about the time it takes you to get up and go get a cup of coffee. So if you were to say, be downloading some application that you wanted to run, and you were to see this be blocked by our zero trust application service, in about 10 minutes you would see that clear. Obviously, it's a very small percentage of applications that would be blocked in the first place, just 0.02%, but that process of triage would happen very quickly. And what we've seen is that it's really caused around nearly zero compromised customer endpoints since 2018. And actually, MITRE released their 2024 enterprise report around endpoint security, and we had 100% protection against all the tested malware based on their sort of attack steps in that attack. Really, we're punching far above our weight class, I would say, in the endpoint space because of this approach. It's a very unique approach to how we're preventing bad things from running on these endpoints, but it's extremely effective. And if you wanted to understand a little bit more about that process and really how MITRE viewed that, we do have a blog here as well.
Looking if anybody has any questions. I actually have a couple of questions that I can answer here. First one is, a lot of companies want to know where to start. Okay, this is interesting stuff, but what does it mean? And what I would say to that is, step one is we invite you guys to have a discussion with us so that we can have a security profile discussion. Basically, understand your goals and your objectives, and it may be compliance, it may not be compliance, it may be we just want great security. Understand what you've got in place, understand what where you might have holes, where you think you have issues or concerns, and then put that together into our roadmap, security roadmap that we can work on together. We can also deploy a full risk assessment if that helps. It could be a compliance level risk assessment. It can be more of a just have a formal risk assessment on our security so we know where we think we may have holes. This second question would be like, what are the big impact solutions? And I would say there are probably the biggest impact solutions in this area, although there are many, is managed detection and response when added to like an EDR solution, endpoint detection solution, or a network detection and response solution, or to like a SIEM. A SIEM with MDR is going to give you full perspective on everything going on in your organization. It also leverages AI in the SIEM and in the SOC, and that is the highest level of monitoring you can apply to your system and to your overall security. And it will monitor all your security and your key IT. So these are important things that you can apply at the very, very sort of the highest levels. I also gave you a list of all the areas where it's being deployed. These are all important. My message to everybody that attended today is, we want to work with you together on your security. And so for us, that means we want to understand your objectives and your goals, and we want to help you solve your big problems. It's not about this project or that project or selling you a product A, B, or C. The real value we can provide to you is helping you solve your problems. And the better we understand your company and where your goals and objectives are, the more we can help you plot that out. I would offer to you the opportunity to talk to our CSO anytime that we can get that set up. We can also do a formal risk assessment and get it. We can deep dive it as much as you want, but the more we understand, the more we can help you. And I want to really thank Stephen for his participation today in WatchGuard, getting an insight into what they're doing, which is evolving, and frankly, evolving with every security vendor, how they handle AI to augment their security, and how AI is being deployed to attack. So WatchGuard is is a great company in terms of security. They are continuing to add new solutions and products. I don't know that he really formally announced it, but they will be formally announcing a new product in the next few weeks related to securing the cloud and remote users. And that would be something you should stay tuned for. And it is one of many steps that they are deploying to help secure the cloud and everything as it evolves into the cloud. We are available to have discussions with you at any moment as follow-up, and our sales team will follow up with you on that. So thanks very much. Appreciate your time. Have a great week and look forward to talking to you soon.